The arrival, a mistake they would regret. The vast expanse of space stretched endlessly before them, an ocean of silent darkness pierced only by the cold, distant light of alien stars. The Imperial fleet had arrived in the Sol system, an overwhelming force of destruction and conquest. Thousands of warships drifted in perfect formation, their steel hulls gleaming under the sun's rays, their weapons primed and ready. This was supposed to be easy, just another conquest, another world to fall before the might of the Galactic Dominion. Admiral Tyrell stood on the command bridge of the Obsidian Wrath, his deep violet eyes scanning the holographic display before him. The Terran system was primitive by their standards, a minor blip in the galactic map, yet rich in resources, enough to fuel the Empire's war machine for centuries. The humans were insignificant, barely worth the effort, yet strategic enough to warrant complete annihilation. Beside him, Captain Vor sneered as he observed the data. Humans, he muttered, barely beyond their cradle. Their technology is primitive, their defenses laughable. They haven't even expanded beyond their own solar system. This will be over in a matter of hours. Tyrell smirked, nodding in agreement. Indeed. Our sensors detect only a handful of space stations, outdated planetary defenses, and no significant fleet. This will be a swift purge. Begin the planetary bombardment. Let them know they are nothing before the Dominion. As the order was given, the massive Imperial fleet moved into position, preparing to rain destruction upon the surface of Earth. But then, something unexpected happened. A single human vessel appeared on their scanners, drifting silently through the void, small and unarmed. It was nothing compared to their warships, barely large enough to register as a threat. It had no shields, no weapons, no discernible life signs. It was just there. Is this some kind of joke? Captain Vor scoffed. They send an empty ship to challenge us. The bridge crew chuckled, but Admiral Tyrell remained silent, his fingers tightening around the edge of his command chair. Something felt off. He had fought in countless battles, conquered hundreds of worlds, yet an unsettling feeling crawled up his spine as he watched the lone human vessel drift closer. Scan it again, Tyrell ordered. The sensors ran another diagnostic. The results were the same. No weapons, no shields, no life. Just a hollow shell moving through the abyss. Then, without warning, the human ship disappeared. Not an explosion. Not a warp jump. No trace of an energy signature. One moment it was there. The next, it was gone, as if it had never existed. The bridge fell into uneasy silence. What just happened? Vor whispered, his usual arrogance replaced with confusion. Before anyone could answer, alarms flared across the command deck. "Sir," a communications officer shouted, "we just lost the Reaper's Talon." Tyrell's eyes narrowed. The Reaper's Talon was a battlecruiser, one of the most advanced ships in the fleet. "What do you mean lost? Did they engage in combat?" "No, sir. They just vanished." A wave of murmurs spread through the bridge, panic creeping into the officers' voices. Ships didn't just vanish. There had to be an explanation. Tyrell slammed his fist against the console. "Show me the last recorded footage from the Reaper's Talon." The display flickered to life, revealing the final moments of the doomed ship. At first, everything appeared normal. The cruiser was maintaining formation, its engines burning steadily. Then, in an instant, the ship collapsed in on itself, like a shadow devoured by unseen hands. No explosion, no debris, just nothing. "Sir," another officer cried out, "we've lost contact with the Black Dagger and the Venom Fang. More ships are vanishing, sir. There's no distress signal, no attack, just gone." Panic spread like wildfire. The mighty Imperial fleet, an armada built to conquer entire civilizations, was disappearing, one ship at a time. Then, a transmission crackled through the speakers. A voice, deep, Cold. Inhuman. You should not have come here. The word sent a chill through every soul on the bridge. They weren't a threat. They were a statement. A truth. Xyrel's throat went dry. He had faced rebellions, exterminated entire species, burned planets to ash. But this was different. Identify yourself, he barked, trying to maintain authority. This is Admiral Tyrell of the Galactic Dominion. We demand that you. The voice cut him off. You demand nothing. The lights flickered. The holographic displays distorted. The very air felt heavy, suffocating. One by one, the Imperial ships continued to vanish. Officers screamed. Some tried to flee the bridge, only to find the doors locked, the very ship turning against them. The crew of the Obsidian Wrath could do nothing but watch as their fleet, once an indomitable force of conquest, was erased from existence. Xyrel clenched his fists, his mind racing for an explanation. For a weakness, for a way out. There had to be something. Then the voice returned, whispering in his ear. You came to conquer, but we do not fight. We erase. The last thing Admiral Tyrell saw was the darkness swallowing his ship whole. And then silence. The abyss that watches. Darkness. It was not the kind of darkness that came with the absence of light, nor the void between stars. It was a living, breathing thing. A sentience that pressed against Admiral Tyrell's mind, like 1,000 whispers crawling beneath his skin. The Obsidian Wrath, once a mighty flagship of the Galactic Dominion, was adrift in absolute silence. The emergency lights flickered weakly, casting long shadows over the terrified crew. Tyrell gritted his teeth, gripping the edges of his command chair. His claws dug into the metal as his mind fought against the sheer impossibility of what had just happened. An entire armada, thousands of warships, gone. No wreckage, no explosions, just an expanding, creeping void where his fleet had once stood. Status report, he barked, his voice the only sound in the oppressive quiet. For several moments, no one answered. The bridge officers sat frozen at their stations, their expressions empty, hollow. Fear was too weak a word for what they felt. This was something else, a primal, paralyzing terror. Finally, Captain Vor forced himself to move, his fingers trembling over the console. "Yes, sir. Our systems are failing. Sensors error." He stopped, his throat tightening. "They're showing nothing. No stars, no planets, no fleet. It's like we've been erased from the universe itself." Cyrel's jaw clenched. "That's impossible. Run a deep scan. If there's a cloaking field." "There isn't." The voice did not belong to Vor. It was something else. Every officer turned at once. The sound had come from everywhere. The speakers, the control panels, the very walls of the ship. Then the lights flickered violently, and the main display screen activated on its own. What they saw sent ice through their veins. A graveyard. It stretched endlessly across the void, a battlefield not of war, but of annihilation. Thousands, millions of ships floated lifelessly, drifting without purpose. Some were broken, others were untouched, but all shared one thing in common. They were abandoned. No bodies, no distress signals, no survivors. Some of these ships were Imperial. Some were of species Hyrel didn't recognize. And some were far older than anything the Galactic Dominion had ever encountered. Tyrell felt his stomach churn. The sheer scale of destruction was beyond comprehension. The Galactic Dominion had always prided itself on its military superiority, its technological advancements. But here, in this abyss, their empire was nothing. Then, something moved in the distance, a shadow, shifting unnaturally. It was massive, but it had no clear form, like a ripple in reality itself. It twisted and morphed, flickering between solid and vaporous states, an entity that defied logic. And it was watching them. The whispering voice returned, crawling through their minds. "You were never meant to see this." Cyrel's blood ran cold, This was no enemy he could outmaneuver, no opponent he could strategize against. He had led planetary sieges, burned entire civilizations to the ground. But here, he was nothing more than a moth fluttering before an endless abyss. Captain Four stumbled backward, his breathing ragged. What is this place? A long silence followed. Then, the voice, so calm, so absolute, spoke again. A warning. The images on the screen flickered, shifting. The graveyard of ships was replaced by something far worse. A planet, or what was left of it. It had once been a thriving world, a jewel in some forgotten civilization's empire. Now, it was hollow. Entire continents had been stripped away. The oceans were gone, replaced by endless scars of raw, exposed crust. And at the planet's core, where molten fire should have burned, there was nothing. A gaping black void sat where its heart should have been. Captain Four trembled. Who could have done this? The whisper did not hesitate. Humanity. A shudder passed through the bridge crew. The word itself felt wrong, like something that had no place being spoken aloud. Cyril's mind reeled. No, that couldn't be right. Humans were primitive. A minor species barely capable of interstellar travel. He had studied their history. They had never displayed this kind of power. This had to be a deception. You're lying. Cyril growled, his voice regaining some of its edge. The presence did not respond immediately. Instead, the image on the screen shifted once more. Now, they saw Earth, or at least what they assumed was Earth. But something was different. The planet still orbited Sol, still spun in the endless void, but it felt wrong. A deep, suffocating aura surrounded it, like a predator waiting in the darkness. The longer Cyril stared, the more uneasy he became. There was something beneath the planet, something his sensors couldn't detect, something ancient and unfathomable. Then the voice whispered one last time, its tone almost amused. You assumed they were weak. That was your mistake. Cyril's claws dug deeper into his chair. If they're so powerful, why haven't they conquered the galaxy? A pause. Then the voice's answer sent an icy dagger through his core. Because they do not wish to rule. They wish to be left alone. The bridge was silent. No one spoke. No one breathed. And then, one by one, the emergency lights died. The screen went black. The hum of the ship's engines faltered. And as the abyss crept in, Admiral Tyrell realized the truth far too late. They had never come to conquer humanity. They had stumbled into something far, far worse. And now, there was no escape. The forgotten truth. The darkness swallowed everything. The obsidian wrath drifted in silence, lost in an abyss where the universe itself seemed to end. The crew's desperate attempts to regain control were met with failure. No response from the engines. No communication. No sensors. It was as if the ship no longer existed in real space. Admiral Tyrell remained seated, his fingers gripping the cold metal of his chair. He had faced hopeless battles before, had seen death up close on countless worlds. But this was different. He was no longer the predator. He was the prey. Across the dimly lit bridge, Captain Four's breathing was ragged. Admiral, he whispered, what do we do? Irel didn't answer. He couldn't. He had no strategy for this. No contingency plan for battling an unknown force that could erase an entire fleet without firing a single shot. Then the voice returned. Your empire has forgotten. The whisper echoed through the bridge, crawling into their ears like icy fingers. The screens flickered back on, and the image they displayed made Tyrell's blood run cold. A planet. Not Earth. Something older. It was barren, its surface scorched, its atmosphere stripped away. Ruins stretched across its desolate plains, the remains of a civilization that had once thrived. The architecture was wrong, designed in ways that defied imperial logic. And at the planet's core, a massive gaping hole stretched down into an endless void. Cyril's throat tightened. He had seen countless conquered worlds, had reduced civilizations to rubble with orbital bombardments. But this was not the result of war. This was erasure. What is this? Captain Vor stammered, his voice shaking. The whisper did not hesitate. Your past. The bridge was silent. The crew looked at each other in confusion. What does that mean? Tyrell demanded. The screen changed again. More ruined planets, more lifeless systems. Each one bore the same scars. Entire worlds stripped clean, civilizations erased without a trace. The whisper returned. Before your empire, before your kind, there was another. They did not seek war. They did not seek power. They only sought to survive. A new image appeared. A fleet. Massive ships, unlike anything Cyril had ever seen, stretching for light years in all directions. They were sleek, elegant, yet terrifying in their sheer scale. A fleet of beings long forgotten. Then, a final image. A single human standing among them. It was impossible. Tyrell had studied human history. They were primitive. They had only just begun expanding into space. They had no empire. No fleet like this. You're lying. Tyrell growled, though the fear in his voice betrayed his certainty. The whisper did not argue. It only continued. Your kind came after them. You built your empire upon the ashes of what they left behind. But you never questioned why their worlds were empty. You never asked why no ruins remained. Because we erased them. The lights on the bridge flickered violently. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls, twisting in ways that defied logic. The air grew colder. Tyrell clenched his fists. If humans are so powerful, why let us exist at all? Why not erase us the way you erased them? For the first time, the whisper was silent. Then it spoke. Because you are not a threat. You never were. Cyril felt something inside him break. The Galactic Dominion prided itself on conquest, on dominance. They had ruled the stars for millennia. They had enslaved species, shattered civilizations, burned entire planets to the ground. Yet to these beings, to these humans, they were nothing more than an inconvenience. Something unworthy of erasure. His mind reeled. The Dominion was supposed to be unstoppable. The greatest force the galaxy had ever known. But the truth was far worse than he could have imagined. They had not discovered humanity. They had stumbled into something ancient, something waiting. And now they had its attention. The ship trembled. The walls groaned, as if reality itself was cracking apart. Then the whisper changed. It was no longer distant, no longer cold. It was right behind him. Run. The main display flickered violently, revealing something incomprehensible. A shadow, a shape, a presence that defied understanding. It wasn't human, yet it was. A ghost of something that once was, or something that had never been. The abyss around them shifted, closing in. The bridge crew screamed as the walls warped, as shadows reached for them. Tyrell had no choice. "Get us out of here," he roared. Captain Vor's fingers slammed against the console. Engines offline. Warp drive is. The whisper cut through the chaos. Run. Then the ship moved, not by their own doing, not by their own engines. The void itself hurled them away. The darkness twisted, folded in on itself, and the obsidian wrath was flung through space like a discarded toy. Stars blurred past, light stretching into infinity, until silence. The ship lurched violently, systems flickering back to life. Alarms blared. The emergency lights returned. And suddenly, they were back in real space. The abyss was gone. Zyral's chest heaved. His claws had dug so deeply into his chair that they had left permanent marks. His crew sat in stunned silence, struggling to comprehend what had just happened. Vor swallowed hard. "Admiral, we need to report this to High Command." Cyril didn't answer immediately. He stared at the empty void before them, a single thought running through his mind. We were never the strongest. He exhaled shakily. No. Vor blinked. Sir. Cyril's hands tightened. His voice was cold. We tell no one. Vor paled. But Cyril's gaze snapped to him, filled with something Vor had never seen before. Pure, unfiltered fear. If the Dominion learns of this, if they send another fleet, we might not be so lucky next time. The bridge remained silent. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, Vor nodded, and as the obsidian raft drifted away from the abyss, Admiral Tyrell knew one thing with absolute certainty. They had escaped, but the shadows had washed, and next time, humanity might not let them go.